All right, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is our community's house. We are all guests in it here to serve our community. My name is Mike Little, Mayor for the District of North Vancouver, and the pleasure falls to me to welcome you all here to our regular meeting of council for Monday, May the 6th at 7 o'clock. I would like to start off our meeting in a good way, and so I'll read our land acknowledgement. We respectfully acknowledge the original peoples of these lands and waters, specifically the Tsleil-Waututh, Squamish, and Musqueam people, on whose unceded ancestral lands the District of North Vancouver is located. We value the opportunity to learn, share, and serve our community on these unceded lands. Council, we have an agenda that's been circulated in the package. Are there any errors or omissions from the agenda as presented? Hearing none, will somebody please move its adoption? Moved by Councillor Moss, second by Councillor Murray. Prepared to call the question. All in favor? Contrary minded? The motion carries. Council, we have one set of minutes that have been circulated. This is from the April 8th public meeting. Are there any errors or omissions from those meeting minutes as presented? Hearing none, will somebody move their adoption? Moved by Councillor Murray. Is there a seconder on the matter? Second by Councillor Back. Prepared to call the question. All in favor? Contrary minded? Motion carries. The minutes are now adopted. Okay, at the front end of any regular meeting of council, we set aside a period of time of up to 30 minutes to hear from members of the community on matters of concern for them. And so at the front of the meeting, we start with a list from our clerk's department for speakers, and I'm looking for my list at this moment. There we go. And so we have a number of speakers that are signed up tonight. Preference is given to people who are speaking on items under consideration on this evening's agenda. And so I have Carrie Elyers, followed by Benjamin Haggerty speaking on agenda items tonight. And then I have additional 5 speakers speaking on non-agenda items after that point. So at this point, welcome Carrie Elyers. Sorry.
But that's okay.
Elyers. Welcome. When you're comfortable, you have 3 minutes to address the council.
Thank you very much. Good evening, Your Worship and council members. My name, as you can see on the board there, is Carrie Elyers, and I am a 30-year-plus resident living in the beautiful Seymour area. I'm here today to lend support to a motion that's being presented by Councillor Jim Hansen for the DNV to prioritize plant-based foods in their food purchasing. This motion addresses an area where a planet can benefit without significant financial costs to the district and without significant planning or implementation time. The money used by the DNV for food procurement can be allocated in a way to prioritize climate-friendly and also healthy food choices. Now, I am aware that this motion only affects the food that's purchased and the food that's funded within the corporation of the DNV. But when prioritizing choices in this area, we are showing leadership and we are growing awareness by normalizing climate-friendly and healthy foods. The motion itself details information on the impacts to the environment from animal agriculture. It also references the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, which recommends that we look at eating more plant-based foods in our diet. Surprisingly, this is also reflected by the 2019 Canada Food Guide. This is the first food guide that has been created solely based on scientific research and nutritional data. There's no food industry interests involved in this food guide, which was unusual when it was done. It acknowledges that food choices impact the environment. And it also, from a health perspective, which is what it's written for, of course, it states vegetables, fruit, whole grains, protein foods should be consumed regularly. Among protein foods, consume plant-based more often. Now, on a personal note, I live a block away from beautiful forest trails. Climate change has impacted the forests around me and my neighbors. They are drier, more apt to catch fire, and when they do, they would spread quickly. Vegetation is drying out early, and it's unavailable to our forest-dwelling neighbors. Last year was the first year we ever had to put together an evacuation bag. And that's because there was a fire in the Mount Seymour area, and there was a concern that it would get to where we lived. So I realize that the district doesn't have a cafeteria, and I realize that we don't have rec centers that are under the jurisdiction of the corporation of the District of North Vancouver. But I do think we should do everything that we can. So I ask that you support this motion and you look at food procurement budget so that it prioritizes climate-friendly, healthy food choices in support of the district's climate strategy, plan, key directives, and community health. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you very much for your comments today. Next speaker I have is Benjamin Haggerty, followed by Michael Lockheed. Welcome. When you're comfortable, you have 3 minutes to address the council.
Thank you, Your Worship. Your Worship and esteemed members of the council, thank you very much for your attention. My name is Benjamin Haggerty. I'm a resident of the district. I would like to expand on what my colleague and friend explained by briefly addressing what many of our critics have mentioned, and that is the perception of freedom. It has been said that this motion may interfere with food choice, when in fact it is meant to broaden it. Peer-reviewed studies at universities throughout BC have illustrated that many of those who engage with plant-based options do so when health conditions necessitate it, and these conditions include lactose intolerance, IBS, and other food allergies. This motion has the potential to allow those who live with these conditions to allow the option to enjoy what they're eating at these functions and without having to worry about feeling ill afterwards. The standard options won't be replaced, so it's not that this motion is here to replace or to infringe upon what's already there. More, it's just adding to what space and what funds are already allocated to it. In the end, we invite you to think of this not as a limitation, but as the opportunity for greater inclusion, especially for those who may otherwise feel excluded currently. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much, Benjamin Haggerty. The next speaker I have is Michael Lockheed, followed by Kevin Harrington. Michael Lockheed joining us here virtually. Sweet. I'm just going to check and see if there's a virtual participant that matches that description. I don't see a Michael Lockhead attached to the meeting, and I don't see someone in here, making themselves known. So if you are using a different name online, please feel free to reach out. The next speaker I have is Kevin Harrington here in the council chamber. Welcome. You have, when you're comfortable, you have 3 minutes to address the
Thank you,
council.
Mayor, and I appreciate the opportunity, Council. My name is Kevin Harrington. I'm a resident of Roslyn Boulevard and a member of the Seymour Neighborhood Alliance. We're all represented with yellow dots. It's a grassroots alliance. We just wanted to make sure that there is a community consultation of residents impacted by the Spirit Trail that will strike a balance to ensure that together we get it right. The trail is going to be around for decades. So like many of my neighbors, I've spent a significant amount of time educating myself on the eastern extension of the Spirit Trail. I attended both DNV sessions at Sherwood Park and Maplewood School. I've personally canvassed 80 homes in our neighborhood over the last week and a half. Speaking with my neighbors, I'm also an avid cyclist, and I've ridden the proposed northern and southern routes of the eastern extension of the Spirit Trail. So I wanted to share some insights with you. The southern route, it travels along many stretches of residential streets from and if we have a common intersection, let's think about Mount Seymour Parkway and Strathaven, okay? Before that, we would like to consult on that as well, but these are common intersections. So the southern route travels along Strathaven through to Cates Park and then eventually to Myrtle Park. It crosses 200 residential driveways. 65% of this trail is along residential neighborhoods. The northern route from Strathaven, if you cross the parkway, it travels along a path through Parkgate and then along Indian River, down paths all the way to Strathcona and Dollarton. In that path, there's 18 driveways and there's only 20% residential neighborhood. So why is this important? According to ICBC Road Safety Toolkit, this is a self-described summary of the most valid and reliable research for road safety. Pedestrian and cyclist fatalities represent 27% of all motor vehicle-related fatalities in BC. Cycling injury risk can be reduced between 30 and 90% compared to on-street cycling with no infrastructure. The Spirit Trail in West Vancouver and the city of North Vancouver largely avoid residential streets. We've talked to neighbors. I referred earlier to canvassing the neighborhood along with some of my SMA colleagues. So we had a petition that we circulated. It had two aspects to it. The first was that we request that DNV pause the current trail planning process to consult with the communities impacted. The second was that to the greatest extent possible, the eastern extension not routed through residential streets. So I have and I'm at the end here, I see, I have the petition. There's 197 signatures. There was only 6 people that declined to sign it. I think it's an overwhelming kind of community endorsement for more consultation. Can I
So
bring
there's
this
a
to you?
black tray on your desk that's
Okay.
currently got some hand sanitizer and tissue. If you put it in there, we'll get it scanned by the clerk's department. We'll have it shared with the council and form part of the public record on the matter.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kevin Harrington, for your comments. The next speaker I have is Heather McDonald, joining us here in person. Welcome. When you're comfortable, you have 3 minutes to address the council.
Hi, thank you for having me. My name is Heather McDonald. I'm a member of the Seymour Neighborhood Alliance. My husband and I have lived in the Seymour area all our lives and at 848 Strathaven Drive since 1993. We're daily users of the surrounding green spaces. We love North Van and are happy to support a trail that links the various communities. We are not happy with the lack of consultation with residents who are directly affected by route choices of the Spirit Trail Eastern Extension and instead the reliance on documents that are more than 10 years old. As long-term and active residents of this area, we have good ideas and important perspectives to share. We're grateful for the recent efforts of the district and in particular Shane and Herman to hear the concerns and ideas of the Seymour Neighborhood Alliance. As a resident of Strathaven Drive, I'm going to speak about the concerns related to the proposed route that would come down our quiet dead-end neighborhood. The vast majority of residents on our street, including 100% of residents on Strathaven Drive, are opposed to this route because of safety, livability, and parking concerns. And I have all the signatures on the petition here. Our primary concern is safety, both for residents and Spirit Trail users. And as was just said, there are many residents and children that play on the street. We also have resident elders, including my parents, who walk the streets for their health. We fear accidents as Spirit Trail users come down our street, likely at some speed given the steep grade, and encounter children playing, elders walking, and families out with their dogs. Trail users will have to avoid resident cars as we enter and exit our driveways, weave around parked cars. There's room only for single lane traffic when cars are parked on both sides, and steer clear of children, elders, dogs, and families using the street adjacent to their homes. This is a recipe for disaster. We've seen how the bike trails in Vancouver are used by all sorts of wheel traffic, including e-bikes and scooters. We've seen the influx of tourists to access North Shore trails and attractions like Quarry Rock and Deep Cove, and we've seen the heavy use of the Spirit Trail in other parts of the North Shore. It seems undoubtable that the Eastern Extension will bring many users to this area, and thus we're concerned about parking. There must be parking available for users. However, additional parking on our street will increase danger to both residents and trail users. I've already mentioned the parked cars make the street narrow and increase the hazard. We've heard the mayor acknowledge that the Spirit Trail was never meant to be on residential streets, and we understand why. But the good news is that there are alternatives. For the section of the trail that would access our street, there's an existing safe, beautiful trail parallel to Northlands Golf Course. This option avoids deforestation and the construction of 2 bridges, which could save the taxpayer millions. It also links an important part of our community, Parkgate Mall. The district is remiss in not including Parkgate as they offer great vendor services as well as parking. Our alliance, including avid bike riders, are asking for this. Talk to us and let us help with route planning. Quiet residential streets are not appropriate and safe as route choices. And 2, study parking carefully. The evolving parking crisis in Deep Cove is real and should not be pushed west into quiet neighborhoods. Thank you very much
for your comments. Heather McDonald, thank you. Sorry, Mr. Stewart, you wanted to clarify something or?
Yes, Your Worship. I just wanted to mention for the gallery that in fact, council will be reviewing both the additional consultation that's going to occur and the route options on next Monday.
Thank you.
In a public workshop. Yeah. And I will just say, one of the challenges of the northern route, and maybe this can help with the feedback that we receive from you in the next week leading up to that conversation. The northern, I think a lot of you know where I live. I know the area very well. I'm in the middle of it. And the challenge is when you go north of my house, where I am on the parkway there, the grade gets extremely steep. And when you're south of the house, you can descend at a more gradual rate. So that's one of the things staff are trying to balance, is that one of the commitments in the Spirit Trail also has to do with it being all ages accessible, which includes the maximum grade. And so that's been our challenge on the northern route, is that, well, you know how steep it is to go down that connection from Beaufort down to Cliffmont. It's a very steep street. A lot of fun on the way down, not so fun on the way back. But we will definitely be having that included, the northern route potentially in the discussion as we go forward on the matter. And so feel free to share your comments on that. The next speaker I have tonight is Trey Bell and then Irene Engel. Welcome. When you're comfortable, you have 3 minutes to address the council.
All right. Hello, welcome, or thank you for having me and Irene. Irene's joining us via Zoom. Again, my name is Trey Bell. We're here to introduce a new community association that Irene and I have started about a month ago. And it's representing the Lower Lynn area, so the Lower Lynn Community Association. We're part of the NV-CAN, North Van Community Association Network. And in about in the month we've been active, we have about 100 members so far. So obviously, we're representing an area that is fast growing and is south of the highway and west of the Trans-Canada Highway, and then over to Sutherland Avenue and south to Main Street. So quite a large area. And yeah, the residents that we've talked to so far basically have a few different things that have come up. Like, we'd love to have a community day like Parkgate has up in Parkgate, or Lynn Valley has in Lynn Valley. And we'd like to partner with local businesses and other community organizations in the area. And then also we'd like to inform the residents of that area, a lot who are new to the district, just about municipal matters and things happening in the community. One of the other main things is traffic safety, that I think because so many new people are living there, the traffic has increased and a lot of residents have concerns about that. So possibly petitioning for some kind of traffic management plan. I'll throw it over to Irene on Zoom now.
Hi, can everyone hear me?
Yes, I can hear you clearly. Go ahead.
Okay, good evening, Mayor and Council members. I actually wrote some things down. My name is Irene and I'm the co-president of the new Lower Lynn Community Association, an association that we really have you all to thank for inspiring us to start. You see, you all taught me that very big and important decisions are made at your table that will forever change my neighborhood. You encouraged us to create a neighborhood group to have our voices better heard. So here we are with your blessing, ready to show you all that the voices of Lower Lynn do matter. Since our inception, just in March of this year, as Trey said, we have met with North Van CAN, created social media accounts, and like Trey said, are just shy of 100 members already. We have a website and newsletter being created. We're planning a community day. And most importantly, we have a second meeting in the works where we sit with our neighbors and hear their concerns and dreams for our neighborhood. We are excited to have our concerns and ideas heard by you all at future meetings and look forward to partnering together to better our little corner of North Vancouver. I'd like to conclude by highlighting that I'm really not a political person. I have 2 small kids and I'm realizing quickly that my demographic is not actively involved in municipal initiatives. This has to change, and if I can be a voice for a generation that is known to struggle to own a home, find affordable daycare, and for some even a living wage, then perhaps more people like me will show up and be heard by you. Thank you for the inspiration to create the Lower Lynn Community Association.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations on your decision. I look forward to working with you to improve our community. The next speaker I have is Eric Jensen. Joining us in person here. Welcome.
I know, I made the drive.
When you're comfortable, you have 3 minutes to address this meeting.
Nice to see everybody. Good evening, Mayor and councilors. It is wonderful to see you once again in this wonderful room with great weather. I am here tonight to share something that I attended at the City of North Vancouver last week. I was invited through the Home Builders Association to attend a meeting of sorts to work and liaise with the chief building officials at the city to discuss what's working and what's not working with the inspection department. Just to recap, in case you guys have forgotten, well, I know I'm not forgettable, but nonetheless, I'm a member of the Home Builders Association of Vancouver. I'm an active member of the Renovator and Custom Builder Council of that same association. I'm also an active member of the Government Relations Committee. Again, I met with Tim Rice and I can't remember Richard's last name, as well as a number of other officials, and invited and in attendance were a number of other people from the building department, as well as other contractors, architects, and designers. So people that are stakeholders in the permitting process. There was somebody there, pretty sure her name was Catherine, a very good facilitator, and she was there facilitating the session, and she started each bit with, with what's working well and, what areas could use some improvement. I think Tim, who's the chief building official, he said he didn't sleep the night before because he was so nervous about everybody coming in and yelling at him. But it turned out to be an exceptionally collaborative process where everybody was able to come together and hear, again, what is working and what's not working. It gave everybody insight as to, the effect these things are having. One of the things I didn't realize the building officials that I deal with have to deal with is that they're having to apply 5 different building codes at once. I mean, as a contractor, you just think about like what's happening in your narrow field of life, but these poor fellows are having to remember, not what today's building code is, but also what previous building codes have been. And anyways, I could see that being very challenging. During the session, we came up with a handful of easily actionable items to immediately improve the permit application process and getting permits through to what I'm looking for. So that I get it back so I can do my job. Issuance, thank you. One of which was just opening up the front desk so that you could have in-person communication. It's amazing how hard it is to solve a problem via email and Zoom and phone calls. An in-person meeting can solve a ton of problems. There was a number of other thoughtful ideas that came up that are going to take a little bit more time to implement, but I'm here to just see if there was any appetite from you folks to maybe encourage the building department here to partake in a similar sort of event, because I thought it was really, really useful. That's it. Thanks for your time.
Thank you very much, Eric Jensen, for your comments, and our staff will take that away. Appreciate you coming out today. So we have room for an additional 3 speakers at this point. If anybody else would like to speak, yes, please come on up. And if you could start with your name, that would be appreciated.
Okay. Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Janice Edmonds. I've lived in North Vancouver all my life, and I'm here to talk about the Spirit Trail. A trail is a marked or established path or route, especially through a forest or a mountainous region. That is the definition. 80% of the proposed route is on a road. When I went door to door along our street and talked to everybody and showed them the route that's 80% on the road, they said, why would they do that? The roads are there, people can use them. You can bike ride, you can walk, you can do anything you want on the road. And according to the letters, all they're going to do is minor traffic calming and put up a sign to say this is the Spirit Trail and it's on the road. Doesn't make any sense. We have beautiful green spaces all across the North Shore. You can actually go from the Seymour River. You can go under the Seymour Road. You can go on green space all the way to Deep Cove. The grades, you talk about it can't be more than a 4% grade. The grade on Roche Point Drive is 16% for 15 meters. It's 12% overall. Most of us can't write up that. We just can't. And we're talking about family-friendly trails to connect communities, possibly Blue Ridge to Deep Cove. That would be very nice. We can do it all through the forest. We can make nice switchbacks. We could do the trail from Strathcona Road where the kids from Sea Cove go, make a nice switchback there. There's lots of land. There's lots of land above Cliffmont, above Cliffmont and above Badger. There's trails that go through all that green space. Come down the Quarry Rock Trail. We've already got that land. The steps are very steep. Make a nice switchback. Also, the planning department talks about the residential streets are quiet. They don't talk about the streets we're crossing. We're crossing Dollarton Highway. We're crossing Roche Point, crossing Dollar Road, Bakerview. We're crossing Mount Seymour Parkway, crossing Strathcona. And Plymouth. Plymouth is a bus route, for heaven's sakes. Why would we put a spirit trail on a bus route? I would never take my kids or my grandkids up Plymouth. First of all, I can't ride up there, and neither can the kids. So what's the point of putting a sign up to say this is the spirit trail? City of North End has beautiful trails all through the forest. We can do better than putting it on the road. We want consultation with the residents in the area. The planning department isn't aware of what's on the road. When at the meeting, I said to one of them, did you know Dollar Road is a bus route? They didn't know that. So consult with people that know the trails, know the roads, live in the area. And we want to be able to take our kids safely to the cove, not on a road. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's a bus route for the 211. There you go. Okay, I have time for 2 more speakers. Okay, seeing none, I'm going to move on. All right, council. Returning to the regular agenda, there is a release of closed meeting decisions that are in the package. Moving on to item 8, so this is reports. Council, the first items up are for adoption, but we'll put them before you for your consideration. This is Bylaw 8689, the tax rates bylaw. Just want to be clear, this is only up for adoption. Mr. Daniluk, do you have any additional comment on the matter? Okay, thank you, Council. Prepared to call the question on Bylaw 8. I heard moved by Councillor Back, second by Councillor Muri. Prepared to call the question. All those in favor? Contrary minded? Motion carries. We have the audited financial statements. Item 8.2. This is again, this is up for approval. This has gone through our Finance and Audit Committee. Are there any additional comments, Mr. Daniluk?
Thank you, Your Worship. The audited financial statements for 2023 have been prepared by management and audited by KPMG. They've been reviewed with Council's Finance and Audit Committee, and KPMG has provided an unqualified audit opinion, best possible result. These statements are before Council for approval and will be included in this year's annual report.
Okay, thank you. I'm seeking a mover or seconder on approval. Moved by Councillor Ma. Is there a seconder on the matter? Councillor Back, prepared to call the question. All those in favor? Contrary minded? Motion carries, and the audited financial statements are approved. The next item for discussion is consideration of the filing of the Financial Information Act 2023 Statement of Financial Information. This item has also been returned from the Finance and Audit Committee. Mr. Daniluk, any additional comments?
Briefly, Your Worship, this is a statement of financial information for 2023. It's a statutory requirement of the provincial government. It has been reviewed with Council's Finance and Audit Committee, and it's before Council for approval as well.
Okay, as the chair of the Finance and Audit Committee, I'll be moving this motion. Is there a seconder on the matter? Seconded by Councillor Ma. Prepared to call the question. All those in favor? Contrary minded? The motion carries, and the statement of financial information is adopted. Next item up for discussion is item 8.4. This is the 2023 Council Remuneration and Expenses. This item is being considered for approval. Mr. Daniluk, additional comments?
Your Worship, another brief report. This is a council remuneration filing requirement under the community charter. It's also a provincial filing requirement. This report will be kept at the Municipal Hall for public viewing for a period of 1 year. It will also be posted on our website under the Statement of Financial Information section. There will be additional information provided later on, and when it's received from TransLink and Metro Vancouver, it will augment this information and be filed along with it.
Okay. Council, is there a mover or a second? We're seeking approval for report. Is there a mover or a seconder? Moved by Councillor Ma. Is there a seconder on the matter? Second by Councillor Back. Any discussion on the matter? Prepared to call the question. All in favor? Contrary minded? The motion is carried. We're making great progress. No, we're going to spend more time having discussion on this item for sure. The next item is item 8.5. This is the Economic Development Strategy for 2024 to 2029. Welcome, Mike Bohm. Welcome, Neonila Laloba. I'll pass the floor over to you.
Thank you, Your Worship. And while I kick off my Here. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I am pleased to bring forward this item, but before, I'm sorry, can you hear me okay now? Okay, great. Thank you. Before we carry forward and before I dive into the staff presentation, I would love the opportunity to once again present Mike Boehm, who is the chair of the business task force that was struck to oversee this project for the last 9 months, representing 13 business leaders in the community who dedicated their time, passion, commitment, persistence, and some really great conversations in delivering this project. And Mike would like to briefly address council on the project, if you would allow it.
Please.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, your worship and council members. My name is Mike Boehm. I have been a District of North Vancouver resident for 35 years. And during that time, I've been an active member of the business community as well as the not-for-profit community. First and foremost, and on behalf of the entire business task force, including those in attendance this evening, namely Patrick Stafford-Smith from North Vancouver Chamber of Commerce, thank you very much for this opportunity to address you this evening. As you are aware, over the past several months and under the direction of Neonila Lilova, the task force has met several times to assist with formalizing the economic development strategy. And speaking about the task force, I would like to acknowledge and thank them for their efforts in completing this much needed report. Also, the task force members commend council on their timely and increased focus on economic development within the district. The task force members are pleased with the work completed on the strategy and reaching this important milestone, but it is only the beginning. We arrived at a focused, collaborative, and actionable strategy, and I would reiterate actionable strategy which focuses on the most pressing needs of businesses in the district. The economic development strategy will focus the district policies, services, resources, and actions in key priority areas, including creating employment space, improving services to businesses, working with businesses and partners to tackle our most pressing transportation and housing challenges, enhancing public spaces and the economic and community building opportunity they represent for our town and village centers. Our businesses are committed to the success of the district as an open for business destination and eager to continue being at the table to see through the strategy implementation in the years to come. Working on behalf of the broader business community, the Business Task Force recommends that the district continues to meaningfully engage and collaborate with businesses through the formulation of a formal economic advisory committee of council mandated to oversee implementation of this strategy and provide ongoing strategic level advice on district economic development policies and initiatives. In closing, on behalf of the task force, I would like to once again thank council for their vision to support this initiative from the outset. And lastly, special thanks to Neonila Lilova for her wisdom, guidance, patience, and overall support to see this through to completion. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Before I dive in, I wanted to say, that's okay. I wanted to say thank you to members of the Business Task Force, some of whom may be joining us online as well, for investing the time to see us through on this project so far. I also wanted to recognize the consultant that worked with us through this entire process. We have that support in the gallery as well today. And now, diving right into our presentation today, it has been 9 months since we kicked off this project, serendipitously perhaps, I'm not quite sure. But it has been 9 months of deep research, collaboration, and strategic planning. We're pleased to present for approval the economic development strategy for the district for the next 5 years. It is the first such strategy since the OCP was adopted in 2011 that we are looking at today. And it is also the first dedicated economic development work program at the district, probably in the last decade or so. In the presentation, I will cover briefly the vision and policy context for the strategy. I'll touch upon the development process, how we arrived where we are, and then we'll dive specifically into the plan and what it prescribes moving forward at the strategic level in terms of objectives and initiatives, and at the more tactical level and really specific actions that we want to take forward. Starting with the policy context for the strategy, it is a product of a number of council policies. I mentioned the official community plan as well as the 2021 OCP action plan. Both of them collectively call for economic development policies, programs, and services to attract, retain, and grow businesses in the district to achieve a diverse and resilient local economy. This is really the overarching mandate for the strategy. It is a 5-year blueprint for economic development in the district in alignment with council's direction, in alignment with the current corporate plan, as well as supporting operational and financial plans in place. How we got here, we kicked off in the fall. We kicked off the project in the fall with really deep research that hasn't been done in quite some time on the economic and employment situation in the district. That research determined that the district's economy is quite diverse and that the district is not dependent on one particular industry, which is really good news. We have a good variety of business. It also went into quite a bit of analysis to determine what are the employment growth projections for the district, and in alignment with the Metro Vancouver 2050 projections that are in place right now. And also, what does it mean for the district economy? And the short of it is that translates into 11,000 additional jobs that need to be accommodated in the district by 2050, which by calculations will require 4.2 million square feet of additional commercial and industrial space. So this is really the tall order of the strategy. Simultaneously with the research, we kicked off with the business engagement. It was quite comprehensive. We started off with a survey in the fall. We managed to target the broader business community and receive about 280 responses to our survey, which is a good number, all from businesses in the community. Data from the economic analysis and the survey was then synthesized and presented in a series of workshops with district businesses and economic development partners. Those took place last November. As a result of the workshops, we developed 4 priorities and we received over 100 ideas and solutions to the district's businesses' most pressing challenges and opportunities at those meetings. So we got amazing amount of information to work with. All this was put together and brought forward to you in a very comprehensive report in January. And after that, all this data was taken, further synthesized and put into a strategic planning exercise where the business task force and district staff from various departments met in March to determine 4 objectives, 10 initiatives, and 23 prioritized actions to formulate the final strategy. And this is what we have in front of you today. All in all, close to 350 businesses were involved and economic development partners were involved in the creation of this document. Special recognition, again, goes to those that were involved from beginning to the end with the business task force and staff involved. Moving on, I'd like to walk you through quickly at the strategic level what the economic development strategy looks like. Not surprising, our first priority is to create additional employment space. To deliver additional employment space to meet the job growth and employment space demand, a set of industrial and commercial land use policy initiatives were identified, and these are going to be really the flagship for implementation moving forward. Key initiatives to improve business services in the district under our second objective include streamlining business regulations, permitting and other processes, as well as increasing outreach and facilitation to secure business retention, expansion, and attraction, and to create local job connections. Those are our main thrusts towards these objectives. Engaging business and other partners to explore homegrown solutions to transportation and housing challenges is one way economic development can support ongoing efforts through North Shore Connects and other partners to secure transportation for the North Shore. And lastly, under the 4th objective, working with businesses within our town and village centers, as well as ongoing support to the visitor and film economies, which contribute significantly to the local community, were identified as key initiatives needed to enable and sustain vibrant neighborhoods in the district. And now moving on from the high strategic to much more tactical level, as we mentioned, this is an actionable plan. The 23 actions under these objectives and initiatives were further assessed, taken and assessed against their potential for implementation. And so 8 priority actions bubbled up to the top of our list. That is not to say the others are not going to be implemented, but some of the other actions are either subject to ongoing effort or they are subject to resource availability. Some of the priority actions were developed based on the urgency, the ability to impact the corresponding objective, and availability of resources. And I'll touch briefly on what you have on the chart in front of you here under each of the 4 objectives. With the scarcity of industrial and commercial space in the district, many of the employment land use policy actions were prioritized. Land use policy work also aligns quite well with forthcoming work on the OCP and zoning bylaw as a result, anticipated as a result of the recent provincial housing policy changes. While the development application process review is currently underway to streamline all of the entity district development process, the urgent need for turnkey facilitation of business permits and licenses was highlighted as a top priority for businesses in our conversations. And so alongside the need for ongoing outreach as part of a business retention, expansion, and attraction program, one of the key actions is to institute a one-stop business concierge service. I touched briefly on facilitation of transportation and housing solutions for local businesses. It is an ongoing priority in the work of many departments and partners, and therefore they're not one of the supporting actions actually bubbled to the top of the 8 priorities, but these are listed in the comprehensive report in front of you and the strategy itself. And finally, building community capacity within our commercial town center neighborhoods and exploring models for sustainable delivery of events and activations within our community is how the economic development strategy can make a meaningful contribution to creating liveliness and vibrancy in our commercial neighborhoods. Pending approval, our next step will be to resource and begin implementation of the priority and other actions in the strategy. The business task force recommendation to formalize ongoing business engagement into a council advisory committee would be subject to further consideration by the advisory oversight committee should council direct that motion. And implementation progress will be monitored and reported annually as part of the district's annual report and other corporate reporting cadences that are in place. It is anticipated the strategy will be reviewed and potentially renewed in 5 years. In closing, if I may echo some of the words from our chair of the business task force and some of the sentiments that we heard from the local business community, we believe in front of you is a strategy that is relevant to the business community. It is collaborative, and it provides an actionable roadmap to meaningful economic development in the district that is intended to facilitate a diverse and resilient economy and propel a welcoming and open for business environment in the district. And with this, staff will welcome council's questions. And also, I would like to advise that some of the motions that are in front of you, there are 3 motions. You have the choice to either consider them separately, individually, or as a package. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation. I did just want to say thank you to the group for all of the amazing work they've done. I remember when the report came out to us, there was a tremendous amount of data in there for us to dig over. Questions we hadn't even thought about asking showed up in there. I was wondering from this report, one thing that was asked of us was considering ways of having temporary relief or support for businesses that are facing dramatic changes in their rent or taxation. And I remember very specifically looking at this issue probably about 5 years ago. It was right in this neighborhood here. We had one business get reassessed, and it brought the entire neighborhood up 96% in value in that 1 year, which meant everybody's taxes more than doubled in that neighborhood, with the justification that one property was revalued in the neighborhood. And we looked in depth at the item at that time, and it didn't appear as though there was any lawful way for us to provide relief, because the provincial government specifically forbids us from giving direct assistance to particular business. We have to make decisions at the class level, as it were. But I note in your report that it's recommending that Bill 28 may actually be providing some additional tools for municipalities. So are you able at this moment to speak further to that question of what Bill 28 potentially proposes for us?
Yes, yes, through your worship, Bill 28 does provide the opportunity for municipalities to consider relief to a specific class, business class 5 or 6 properties, depending on the level of land valuation that is within that class. And so staff are already monitoring the situation as part of this year's analysis. We actually did some analysis in relationship to what that legislation provides. And we anticipate to do this on an annual basis to look for opportunities where businesses, specifically in the areas slated for redevelopment, could be impacted with enormous assessments. So we're going to be, one of the action items in the economic development strategy is to continue to do this on an annual basis, to look for those anomalies and look for an opportunity to provide relief under that bill.
And the tool is not just available at the class level, you can do it at that neighborhood development level?
It is at the class level, and it is anticipated that whatever offset is anticipated for a group of businesses with a certain property will be absorbed within the class of that property as well.
I don't know, Mr. Daniluk, do you have any other comments on that?
In addition to monitoring, the best time to take action is in the year in which the change occurs. And so that's the benefit of monitoring on an ongoing basis. So we'll see what happens with the new housing legislation and what effect it has. And there's potential for impacts there.
I'll be moving the recommendation, although I note that a member of council requested that I bifurcate option out the last proposal, and that the creation of an economic advisory committee be referred to the advisory oversight committee for consideration. And so I'll break them up into 3 as we go through and vote for them. The next speaker, sorry, I need a seconder on the matter. Seconded by Councillor Murray. So the next speaker I have, Councillor Murray, do you have additional comments?
Thank you, Mayor Little. It's such a huge amount of work. I wish the final report had come to a workshop so we could really go through it. There's like 11 highlighted points in the report in regards to surveys and input and workshop. And I think these kinds of documents deserve a more fruitful discussion by council to ask those questions. You see it all the time. We see it a couple of times. And so we need to be able to drill down into it and understand it as we move forward. It's a significant amount of work, and certainly highlighting on page 34, creating employment space. A couple of the things that I've been pounding my fist on the table about for many years, putting the offices on the 2nd floor, not on the main floor. When we rezoned Marine Drive, the unintended consequence of moving car dealerships off of Marine was rezoning, so we would have residential above. And then without thinking, we did not put minimums or maximum size units into those commercial spaces. And we wound up with a number of doctor's office, dentist's office, chiropractors, and there's nothing wrong with those businesses, of course, but we've displaced a retail part of our community, and that livable, walkable neighborhood isn't as livable and walkable anymore, because now you're having to drive to go to the fruit stand or the bakery or the businesses that we used to have. I've talked about childcare, for instance, where we allow childcare in every zone. We have given up full height light industrial commercial spaces for childcare, and childcare is an important need and need in our community, but we could have done it in a different way to have allowed that light industrial to have remained and still used another floor to be able to create childcare or put it in the rear. Protecting light industrial land. I go back to the McKean property down off of First Avenue, where a developer from Alberta came in and thought, oh, well, we can just build this sort of, light industrial, commercial, retail mix, and paid a huge amount of money for the property, only to understand that that wasn't what the municipality had looked at in regards to that property, and maintaining that industrial use in that area was critical. especially given that a piece of property down there has the last deep water port in the district and on the inlet, and it needs to be protected as we are Canada's largest port. So improving business services, and we've had a presentation from one of our local contractors. We've had multiple presentations from the community in regards to creating an easier, more succinct model of doing business within the building. We are doing a review. I'll take my other 2 minutes. Can you stop my time for a minute? And I just have a question to Mr. Stewart. We are doing a review on our business processes. Can you update me, or can someone update me as to where we are with that process?
Your worship, perhaps the Economic Development Officer might have a better idea, or Mr. Milner.
Fiona?
Your worship, through your worship to Council Murray, there is a development application process review currently underway in the district. We are anticipating there's been a lot of data gathering around this process, and this is what I know about it so far. So I would defer any additional information that Mr. Milburn might want to share.
Mr. Milburn?
Thank you, Your Worship, members of council. So as council is aware, we've engaged an external consultant, KPMG, to assist staff and council with the preparation of recommendations. We're nearing the completion of phase one, which is, as mentions, the data gathering phase with specific prioritization recommendations. And we look to return that information to council before moving on to the next phase. So we'll be doing that likely within the coming months before the summer break.
Did I hear about a month? Is that what I heard?
Within the coming months before the summer break.
Before the summer break?
Yep.
That's very important. I'll take my other 2 minutes in addressing the issues of the business community coming in for permits, contracting companies coming in for permits. I've heard, where there used to be a person at the counter, you could get a temporary electrical permit or a plumbing permit, within a few hours in the afternoon. I've heard stories that it's up to a week now. I mean, that it's just not acceptable to be there. We need to change that. And then cultivating great spaces. And, I will share my concerns as we move forward with this, that it's not one size fits all. And there's big, huge companies, and then there's middle companies, and then there's little companies. And it's hard for the little companies to keep up sometimes, especially in this very precarious place that we find ourselves in regards to the economy and the cost of everything, and trying to get labor and trying to just keep your head above water and keep a business going. So I fear for those. I'm going to look after the underdog, the ones that are challenged to be able to keep up in this community and in society that we're living in right now. There's a lot of stuff going on. So I want to learn, and I want to understand about what opportunities or what different kinds of levels can we fit different levels of businesses into this economic strategy, because creating great places, cultivating great spaces in the Cove might be very different than how we cultivate it in Lynn Valley or Lower Capilina, where it's, lots of density, different kinds of businesses off of First Avenue and sort of that industrial area. There's simple things that you can support small businesses in Deep Cove with, like Christmas lights and hanging baskets that help. And then other areas of the community that are more established, there's other initiatives that we need to look at. I would say as well that, we have to be cognizant of the impact that change brings. Deep Cove would probably say to you that, the amount of people drawn into Deep Cove is a huge impact. We have to be able to provide the infrastructure. And so bringing more visitors into an area may be good for one part of the community, but not for the other. And how do you balance that impact? And we really need to be cognizant of that. We're seeing that with how the Cove has changed over the years with Quarry Rock and a donut that we know about, and now a potential spirit trail going into the area with little infrastructure to be able to support more people. So I look forward to more discussions on this and how we can address the concerns that the community has, but as well growing for the future. Thank you.
Councillor Murray, Councillor Back.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you very much for the presentation. I will just start by saying that in the last term of council, during our OCP review, I was one of the proponents of looking at how we can really support business in the district and creating a resource for small businesses within our organization. Because for far too long, I was hearing from business owners that this can be a tough municipality to do business in. So I want to thank you, Ms. Lalova, for your work so far in helping us to change this reputation. And I think you're doing a great job. Now, with regards to the strategy tonight, I want to thank staff for all the work, as well as the 13 members of the committee for everything you've done to contribute to what we are looking at. And firstly, while I recognize that there's a need to plan for future business needs in the community, I would really like to prioritize actions that are going to help current businesses in the district in the short term to make it easier to do business here. And so this is where I struggle a little bit with the way the strategy is organized. If we're ranking them as terms of the most important being objective number one, I'm not totally sure that expansion and attraction should be a key objective, at least at the top of those priorities. I believe actually that objective number two, in terms of improving business services, could actually almost be the whole strategy. Again, I ask the question, what can we do to make every interaction a small business owner has with the district be a positive one? Because I can think of many examples and people that I've heard from where our processes have slowed down what they're trying to do to make their business successful, and it's cost them a lot of time and a lot of money. So I really feel that any new funding, and it's estimated to be $230,000 each and every year, should be directed to that objective, is my opinion at this point. In terms of objective three, supporting transportation and housing for employers, that has to be at the core of all of this. I mean, if workers can't find housing here, there's going to be a negative impact on transportation. I don't actually see a lot that we can do beyond advocating for transportation solutions. I think of a recent example that Councillor Pope and I had when we toured the C-SPAN facility, or one of their facilities down on Pemberton, and they talked about some of the challenges that they're having in dealing with TransLink to get an extra C-bus going to help their workers, or provide their own passenger ferry service. So things like that where we can help advocate, I certainly see what our role there. And then in terms of objective four, cultivate great spaces. This is a topic I'm excited about because I certainly want to see our town and village centers become the vibrant places that they were envisioned to be. I'm just concerned at how quickly we can make those things happen when this is part of our economic development strategy. I almost think that this needs to be a separate piece, cultivating public spaces. I think that we need to actually take a leadership role in creating these public spaces and not rely on small businesses to create them for us. Councillor Murray's alluded to that different businesses are of different scales. And so I think, I just feel like we could be more intentional and proactive in how we create these public spaces, the sort of placemaking that we do. And it's not a one size fits all. Not every group of businesses is going to want to form a BIA necessarily, although that could be a fit. And objective in terms of the actions, I do see a lot of needs assessing and gap analysis. Instead of just doing some of the basic things, I'll take my extra 2 minutes, even though I'm against that practice. We'll talk about that later.
You are welcome.
First time I've done it in 5 years, so I'll start tonight. So, I think there's basic things that we can do. Hire an event coordinator and identify 2 or 3 key events that we want to introduce to each of our town centers and just make them better places. Let's not study it for 3 more years. And rely on our partners like NVRC, who do their best to provide programming, but they don't have the capacity to do enough. Whereas I think we could probably lead some efforts there. So in summary, I certainly want to support the strategy because I support having the economic development resource that we have, and I want to see us continue to make this a community that people want to do business in. But I think we really need to look at our businesses that are here today, what we can do to help them, our processes, and how we can remove some of the red tape rather than try and attract, or be focused on attracting new business and more, and really working with what we have. But those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Back. Next, I have Councillor Hanson.
Yeah, thank you very much, and thank you to the speakers who have come before me. I agree with all of these statements that have been made. Let me begin though by thanking the work that was done by staff, the committee, all the painstaking effort, which we've reviewed in significant detail today and on previous occasions. Awful lot of in-depth research was performed, and we thank you for that. We obviously, I like the rest of council, will agree with the elements of the strategy. They're essentially common sense. I agree with Councillor Back's comment that the low-lying fruit here is improving business services. That's something we have greatest control over. And any of us on council hear over and over again about the challenges that are faced by certain businesses in dealing with the bureaucracy of the district. On the issue of transportation and housing, I mean, one sentence for me just jumped off the page, and that was rapid transit to the North Shore. I mean, securing rapid transit to the North Shore would do more for the business environment of the district than any other single initiative. It would be a total game changer. As a business owner, and I'm a business owner in the city, not the district, but I'm well aware of the issues of high housing costs and challenging transportation dynamics. And it would be a complete game changer to have a rapid transit accessing the North Shore. I won't belabor the other recommendations except to say that they're common sense, and so much of this is within the purview of council, and so much of this is what we should be doing anyway in terms of our promises and our commitments to the community. With respect to the three recommendations, I today am only going to be voting in favor of the economic development strategy. When it comes to creating a new committee, I'm not sure at this stage that the public feel that creating more bureaucracy is the answer for solving economic problems in the district. A bunch of people to get together and talk more about these ideas. I don't see the point. I think we have enough of that. And I think to the extent that the pendulum swung in a certain direction, it's ready to swing back now to simplification, less bureaucracy, more streamline, less spending. And I don't think this is the time to create this particular committee. And I'm going to say the same thing with respect to the Business Initiative Startup Fund. I absolutely agree with Councillor Back's comments about these open or vibrant community spaces. They're for us to create, not for the business community. And in any event, I don't think in this economic climate, we necessarily want to create one more fund to administer and give away on some opaque criteria to people for whatever reason. I think we should hold back on that, at least for the time being. A major theme around this council table is going to be fiscal responsibility going forward. And I think it would be better for us to move more cautiously before we set up a startup fund of this type. With those comments, thank you for all your hard work, and I look forward to working with council as we move forward and implement these and other ideas that will improve the business climate of the district. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hanson. Councillors Ma and Pope. Councillor Ma.
Thank you. Thank you, Neil Nella. Well-written, comprehensive report. You know, as we move forward as a community, we need to have an economic development strategy that will help businesses, guide staff's work, and inform council as we try to figure out how we can support the local economy. I believe this strategic document achieves that. In my opinion, this report is very actionable. There's a lot here, and I realize that it'll take time. Priorities do have to be set because we can't do everything at once. I also realize that sometimes businesses can work faster and better than government. So, you know, in terms of placemaking, I would turn to the local businesses to take care of that. When I do look at the the 8 highest priorities, I don't see action items to support objective 3, transportation and housing for employees. I would like to suggest that that maybe needs to have a higher focus given our current situation. Overall, I want to thank the Business Task Force for their time and commitment in completing the strategy. There's a lot of good information here. And as Mike, the chair of the task force, said, it's only the beginning. I will support all 3 of the motions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Very much. Councillor Pope.
Thank you very much. I want to thank staff for this thorough report.
Yeah, I request that you move your mic directly in front of you.
Yes,
Thank you
thank
so
you.
much.
Former television reporter. I guess I really want to echo what Councillor Back and Councillor Hansen have said about the report. I agree with all of the points that they've made. I really would like to see that the overarching goal and objective of the economic development strategy and what needs to be stated in bold at the start of this report is that we need to have a continued focus on solving 2 problems: transportation to the North Shore and lack of housing for employees. And without those things in place, I feel like businesses will never be able to thrive or even start up. So there is no point in trying to find space for businesses to be in, and rezoning processes and all of this. If we can't get those problems fixed, we're not going to have businesses to depend on for our services on the North Shore at the rate we're going. So I feel like the focus of this strategy is not the right approach. It additionally should be focused on what we can do for businesses today, as my colleagues have also all said. That seemed to be, from my research, the genesis of having an economic development department, was to provide businesses with a one-stop shopping, streamlined shop that could help them get the answers they need, cut through the red tape, all of those things. And I certainly have heard that when I'm out talking to any business owners, that is also one of the biggest problems. And I'm not sure how to achieve that, but I think that should be objective number 1. I question the research that has found that we need to create more spaces for businesses, although I could see how we could be visioning that for the longer term, when 90% of our businesses are less than 50 employees. So I'm not quite sure about all the rezoning of land that's being suggested and extensive work on that front. So again, getting back to priority number 1, businesses want streamlined and improved customer service from the DNV, including the one-stop shop. And I also agree with the public spaces. I feel like Councillor Back and I have pushed hard to have activation of public spaces, and we've had meetings about it. And I almost feel like it was thrown onto the plate of the economic development strategy, but it shouldn't necessarily nest in there. It should be possibly outside of that. It's up to us as community leaders to build community in town centers and to figure out, ways to do that and to enliven town centers. It's not up to the business community to be supporting that, for sure. And I'll take my extra time. For sure, there would be lots of businesses once we get these places activated with more events and more community involvement, that sure, many businesses would like to step up to the plate at that point and sponsor events. But to ask them to be taking that on at this point and to do more research about a needs assessment and all of that, I just don't think it's the right approach. And I would like to see more something along the lines of what the city of North Vancouver has done, which is hire a full-time event coordinator. And to that end, I'd like to see the money from the chamber. Am I allowed to talk about that? At any rate, some of the funding for the economic development strategy that's out there be funneled into that instead. And those are my comments. Thanks.
Thank you very much for your comments, Councillor Pope. I did just want to add my comments on this. I think my colleagues have pointed out some very important pieces, which is just that the timing of the startup idea and the committee idea need to be thought carefully on. And maybe it's not something we do right away, but we consider its impact down the road. I did want to comment about Councillor Hansen's comment about the importance of transit in this piece. So in the middle of April, the provincial government affirmed their contribution to the bus purchase for TransLinks. It's about a $300 million investment in transit in the community. And following our disappointment that the federal budget didn't have directed support to transit, it's a real lifesaver for us to have the provincial government step in and make that significant contribution to transit. That bus purchase does facilitate our ability to develop the BRT on the North Shore, which will provide incredible service for our public and for the workers who need to come to this space. And so we're looking forward to that as soon as we can implement it. On the issue of BIAs in general, the city of North Vancouver is an example as the Lower Lonsdale Business Improvement Association, and it charges a surcharge on your taxes. And I think it's about a $2 per thousand in value. So it's about a 20% lift in the amount of tax that they pay. And so it's not insignificant that the commercial businesses within the BIA zone have a 20% bump in their taxes in order to be able to produce a fund for them to direct towards business-led initiatives within their area. I think a lot of businesses assume that BIAs will be funded through tax dollars directly. It's their tax dollars that go to it, and they pay a premium on the amount of tax dollars in order to be able to produce those funds. So it is self-funded, as you say. But I think a lot of them get surprised that they're going to see a 10 to 20% increase in their taxes in order to be able to produce those funds. And so in a lot of cases where I've seen BIAs be proposed, when they're presented with how it's going to get funded, they tend to step back away from it and tend to go through other things, as Councillor Pope just mentioned, where the municipality steps in and partners on specific improvements within those neighborhoods without the aid of a BIA. And so it is a tool that we have available to us, but it's got to have a very high level of buy-in from the businesses in that area, because it's going to present a significant tax lift for them. And so it's something that we would really need to see a high level of buy-in for that to proceed. But there's no question that a lot of our businesses are struggling. Valuation of properties has a part to do it with it, but it's also, you can't miss a newspaper or an evening news that doesn't cover restaurant closures and business closures throughout the entire province of BC in small towns. And so supply chain issues, cost of business, some people attribute it to carbon taxes and other things for the cost increases. But it is having an effect on our businesses, and we all need to respond, but at the same time, it's best if we respond similarly across all of our municipalities rather than necessarily having boutique responses in each and every community. But I still think it's important for us to be considering these matters and moving forward with support for both the short, medium, and long-term business issues in our community. And so I'm going to be supportive of the recommendation.
All three?
I'm going to be supportive of all three recommendations, although I think both the second and the third one have baked in there that they have to come back to us to some degree because they're going to have to pass budget or they're going to have to pass the AOC. And so I'm fine with them being implemented as they are. So at this time, I did offer to bifurcate it at Councillor Hanson's request. So I'm looking, did I get a seconder for all three? I'm trying to recall, the seconder was Councillor Murray. Did you counsel? And you seconded all three? Okay. So sorry, Councillor Pope, that's from before, is that correct? Okay. Okay, sorry. Okay, so I am prepared to call the questions. I'll call them individually at the request of council. And so the first item is that the Economic Development Strategy 2024 to 2029 included in attachment 1 is approved. I've moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Murray. Call the question. All those in favor? Contrary minded? Motion is unanimously carried. The next item is, and that a business initiative startup fund be designated. Again, moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Murray. Prepared to call the question. All those in favor? Contrary minded? Tie goes to defeat. So the motion is defeated with Councillors Back, Pope, and Hanson opposed. Next, we have, and that the creation of an Economic Advisory Committee be referred to the Advisory Oversight Committee for consideration. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Murray. Prepared to call the question. All those in favor? Contrary minded? Motion is carried with Councillors Pope and Hanson opposed. Okay. Thank you very much, Council. Thank you very much for your presentation, Nionela Laloba, and also to our supportive guests here today. Council, the next item up for consideration is 8.6. This is the business license for Lollypop Childcare, Inc., 4990 Cedarcrest Avenue. We heard feedback on this. All right, Mr. Milburn, do you have additional comments?
Thank you, Worship. As council's aware, a public meeting was held. The information is provided in the staff report, and staff are available to answer questions.
Council, I'll be moving the recommendation. Is there a seconder for the recommendation? Seconded by Councillor Back. My own comments on it. It's I think the matter is well considered. I like that it's got a flanking street so that you can spread out some of the impact on the neighborhood. It's not just simply mid-block. They appear to have a track record of being a good high quality provider within the neighborhood. I wish it was obviously closer to any one of the schools. It's kind of in the middle of the group, and so the walks to all of them are a little longer, and wherever we can, it's great to see these larger daycare facilities as close to schools as possible, but it's not unreasonable, and the distance to the local schools, and it does support multiple schools from its position. And so I will be recommending approval of this expansion. Councillor Beck.
Thank you, Your Worship. Not too much to add. I agree with all of your comments. Seems as though the operator has done what they can to mitigate some of the issues around pickup and drop off, and spreading that out a little bit with where they recommend people do pick up and drop off. Seems largely supported by the immediate neighborhood, and just recognizing the huge need. Having experienced it firsthand fairly recently of childcare in our community, I'm supportive. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I don't see any further speakers on the matter. Prepared to call the question. Oh, Councillor Hanson?
Yeah.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much. I just want to highlight for the public watching, this proposal is a license amendment that will cause the childcare facility to go from 8 to 20 children. There will be 12 spots for children under 36 months, 8 spots for children over 36 months. As has been stated by my colleagues, the amendment is justified by the high demand for childcare in the district in and of itself. But beyond that, all of the speakers, a public meeting was held. All of the speakers had flattering things to say, both about Lollypop Daycare and its proprietor, Manaya Sayeb. No one raised any objections to this amendment. And I would add as well that this is a small step towards the fulfillment of our district's child care action plan.
Thank you, Councillor Hanson. I see no further speakers on the matter. I'm prepared to call the question. All in favor? Contrary minded? Motion is carried unanimously. Okay, Council, moving on to item 8.7. This is the issuance of the 2024 Centennial Bursary Trust Fund. Mr. Daniluk, do you have any comments to add to the process?
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a few brief comments. Bursaries are an established program Council considers each year, and there's no change to the program this year.
Moved by Councillor Murray, second by Councillor Back. Any further comments, Councillor Murray? Thank you. Councillor Back, additional comments? Just want to clarify, this program, we raised the disbursement in order to be able to run out the fund because it had some strange restrictions on it. When will this run out the fund?
Your Worship, I believe it's been explored in the past and we've not been able to determine an end date.
We will all be gone.
Can't slay that dragon. This whatever we want to protect in perpetuity, we just have to put in a Centennial Bursary Fund. It's okay. All right. Well, I will be supportive. Thank you very much. I see no further speakers on the matter. Prepared to call the question. All those in favor? Contrary minded? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Last item on the regular portion of the meeting is the plant-based food procurement in the District of North Vancouver. This is a report presented by Councillor Hanson. Councillor Hanson, seek your movement of your own report, and then we'll get a seconder, and then I'll get your comments if possible.
Yes, I move the report.
Seconded by Councillor Back. Thank you very much. Councillor Hanson, your comments.
Thank you very much. I would like to, at the outset, thank community activist Carrie Eilers, who's with us today, for working with me on this motion. Her dedication to this issue and to saving our climate is commendable, and we owe her a debt of gratitude for her activism. I believe this is an area, a simple area, where we can show leadership. To be clear, the intent of the motion, it says that council consider transitioning to plant-based food procurement. What I mean by the motion is that to the extent that the district purchases food, and we don't purchase a whole lot, we feed ourselves from time to time on council, we put on occasional events, but to the extent that we purchase food in the district, my intent of the motion is that that be plant-based food. We're not going to buy any more meat in the district for our meals or for the events that we put on in the district. And I believe that's an act of leadership that we can fulfill. By doing so, by taking what I consider to be a relatively small step, we achieve some important objectives. We spare the world of carbon emissions. I won't rehash all of the information that's been put before us so many times, but meat-based food creates carbon emissions, which is contributing to global warming. By transitioning away from meat-based foods, we would take a step towards fulfilling the commitment we made when we declared a climate emergency. We would contribute to public health through a healthier diet, and would contribute to a more humane world with less animals being raised and killed for food. Now, let me be clear, I eat meat. I am in no position whatsoever to preach to anyone about diet. But at the same time, in the very few days, I will be seeing my general practitioner, who will review my blood work, and I can guarantee you she will not be telling me to eat more meat. And that's true for so many of us in the district. The types of health recommendations that we would all receive, frankly, would be to eat less meat. It's not going to do any of us any harm to eat plant-based foods when we're here in Hall and when we're attending to whatever events might be occurring in Hall, and when we're receiving guests for these events. such as the Youth Awards event that's taking place on Wednesday. It's not going to do anyone any harm to make sure that we're serving plant-based food on those occasions. It'll even be cheaper, and in so doing, fulfill our fiscal mandate. I view this as a very small step. I view it as an act of leadership. It's a way that we can say, yes, we actually do take the climate emergency seriously. Yes, we actually do take public health seriously. And to the extent that when we're doing district business, we're doing it with plant-based food. And I do hope that I will have, let me say that a similar motion came before the last council, was defeated on this portion. The part that remained was an education portion. And so I'm trying to complete that work by bringing this issue back and taking this step. Now, I do hope I'll have your support. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Beck, your comments?
Thank you very much, Your Worship, and thank you, Councillor Hansen, for bringing this motion forward. I do want to just recall the motion that was brought forward by Councillor Curran in March 2022. And the first part of that, as Councillor Hansen alluded to, was the council direct staff to investigate reducing the annual volume of animal-based foods procured by the municipality, targeting an annual minimum 20% reduction to be replaced with plant-based alternatives by the end of 2022. And I supported that motion for all the reasons that Councillor Hansen supports what's being proposed tonight. But Councillor Hansen, you voted against it at the time. I'm glad that you feel differently today, because I do feel it's a step in the right direction to lead by example, to look at our own food procurement. While it may not be very much, I do think we can show the benefits of looking to plant-based alternatives. I myself am not a vegetarian, but much like Councillor Hansen, look to have more of a plant-based diet. And in terms of reducing greenhouse gas emissions, we know that this aligns with where we're going as a municipality, and I can tell you that as being on council as well as being on our Climate Action Committee, that this does play a role. I think that we can also look at what we're doing to support local food production that's related to this, and supporting that diet that's closer to home, farm to table, as well as looking at the whole issue of food waste in our community. And we will be having a delegation coming up very shortly, who I've invited, whose their whole purpose is doing just that, food rescue. So in terms of food waste, I think it's a very important issue as well. But I definitely support this. I think, again, just leading by example, things like Meatless Mondays are an easy way to introduce more plant-based options, and I'm pleased to support this. Thank you.
So I'm going to be voting against this. I voted against it last time. I'll be voting against it this time. While I have no problem with us promoting plant-based options for people and making sure that our public events are sensitive to people who want to have meatless options available, and both vegan and vegetarian, I do think we should be creating those options. I do know that the creation of options will not be reciprocated, and people with who do have meat proteins will be excluded from our events. And so I'm not supportive of that. We have a cultural role to play when we have a community celebration or an event, and people expect that we're going to have a little bit of food, and it's going to have some variety and some options that people will find attractive and comfortable and make them enjoy the event. And I think it's not unreasonable for that to have a little sandwich spread or something that's got some meat and cheese mixed into it, or that's got some other products. And if cheese is now off the table and meat is now off the table, as they're not plant-based pieces, then those events will be less welcoming to a broad range of people from our community. And I don't think that's the right way to achieve it. We have we support a tremendous number of organizations in the community that use our dollars to support community events and cultural events. And we're going to be basically telling them that when they produce Chinese food with some Kung Pao chicken in it, that they're not welcome. When the Bellwether Society tries to produce a Polish sausage thing and it's going to be funded by the District of North Vancouver, that they're not welcome. You know, I don't partake in our council dinners that we have just for my own comfort. I usually eat after the meeting because I've got to be able to speak comfortably and everything like that through the course of the meeting. And so I'm not a part of the purchase that occurs for council dinners. But at the same time, again, I want every member of council to feel comfortable and welcome, and they should have options that would make them comfortable and feel welcome. And so I'm not going to take a position that's going to make them feel unwelcome. And so I will be voting against this as I voted against it last time. Councillor Murray, your comments.
So I understand this to be the food that we would be ordering for our dinners and for events that we host, like the one on Wednesday, the Youth Awards. Last week we had the Heritage Awards and we had some platters of snacks that were laid out. This says to me, therefore, be it resolved that the governing body of the District of North Vancouver commit to prioritizing plant-based. So what does the word prioritizing mean? Are we going to look at like a 50% or a 65% makeup of plant-based options? Is that, because I heard from the presenters that this was not replacing options that would be brought into the municipality. This would just be adding to it. And I think we do that, you know, quite well already. We did used to have meatless Mondays. We've had opportunities to have vegan food brought into anyone that wants it, from the perspective of the corporate body that needs to eat on Monday nights before because we get here often, we're here at 4 o'clock, so we need to have dinner. You know, I mean, I have no problem having those options available and prioritizing our staff to be able to look at what options we're able to bring in within our budget as well, because we have a certain budget that we allot to these types of meals. I don't think that offering more plant-based options is deterring those organizations from being able to come here and do what they do as far as their cultural initiatives. And I don't think that's what the motion is about. I don't think that is what the movement is about. It's about putting options in front of people that they may not have, you know, experienced before, and wanting them to think about what they're eating. So I think we can find a balance here. And I hope I hope Councillor Hanson is open to that. And I think the movement is open to that, to bring more options forward. Certainly, I'd be happy to eat vegan food every Monday night as my choice, because we certainly are allowed to, you know, when we individually order, to request different places. We've experimented with a number of different systems. But I just want to be clear, Councillor Hanson, we're not wanting to necessarily negatively impact other groups that come in for cultural events if they're using the hall, by limiting what they are allowed to offer their guests. Is that?
Yeah, I just wanted to be clear. So I took your comments to be that you interpret this to be a ban on plant-based, non-plant-based items.
And this motion doesn't say that. It says that we commit to prioritizing plant-based. That doesn't mean banning it.
Well, no, I understand. And thank you for clarifying. I mean, my vision is that when the district buys food, it buys plant-based food.
Okay, so the presentations that we heard at the public table this evening said, this is not to replace, this is to add. And I heard those words very clearly. And so I think there's some confusion with the motion and with what I heard from one of the presenters that came forward.
I mean, on its face, the word prioritizing is perhaps vague. Vague. Yeah. Well, it doesn't say to what degree we will prioritize, but I understood that to mean that we buy plant-based foods and prioritize buy plant-based foods ahead of meat. But there's another interpretation, which is that you prioritize the two together.
That just means that it wouldn't be exclusive of all else.
Yeah.
So I think that's the way that the motion is written. Now, you are the mover of the motion. And so If that was not your intent, I'd look to the clerk for clarity. If a
Ms.
member of
Eilers is
council
here
has,
too, who-
well, it's,
I know, I
it's
just,
Councillor Hanson's report. So if Councillor Hanson's intent is not the motion on the floor, then are we revising the original motion, or we leave it as is and there's some measure of of
flexibility.
future discussion about how it's implemented?
I'd be content with that. If I could, or I guess you're not finished. I wanted to.
Well, like all I'm trying to do is not throw the baby out with the bathwater here. I think we can, certainly bring in more options. I think that what I'm reading is not what you said. You said banned meat. We never gonna eat meat again. And I think what I heard from the presentations, it's that this is not replacing, this is in addition to, and having our staff look at more plant-based options when they're looking to provide meals for us in the future.
Well, I'm content with that
Okay.
interpretation.
Good.
That's your understanding?
Yeah.
Okay.
And are you okay with that now? You can be.
I worry about the hypocrisy of it.
Okay, but-
I have protein with all, I have no problem, as I said in my comments, I have no problem with making sure there's a great, that there's a variety that makes more people feel welcome. And if that includes plant-based options.
Yes, good.
And that's your understanding of
Yeah.
it. But I would
Yeah.
be I would find it very problematic for us to all out ban it.
We're not
and-
banning. I'm gonna make you a vegan grilled cheese.
All right,
and
I've
see
had
how
the
you
clarification
feel
from
about
Councillor Hanson. I accept your clarification. I'm happy to support
it.
that.
Okay, good.
Councillor Ma.
Actually, I was more in line with what Mayor Mike was saying. If it was a strict comment to say, have meatless Mondays or have options, more plant-based options, I'm not opposed to that. But when I read this motion, there's more to it than this. There's a theme here that reaches beyond council. It talks about, leading by example to promote sustainability, healthy environmental places. It talks about a wider commitment to environmental stewardship, public health, and biodiversity. That's more than this having non-meat options at council meetings. So if it's this about having non-meat items, sure. But if it's bigger than that, I think it's a bigger discussion. As part of getting ready for tonight, I did talk to a couple of meat shops in the district. There's 4 major ones: Windsor Meats, Two Rivers, Lynn Valley Meats, and sorry, the 4th one, the British Butcher Shop. They all engage in sustainable, responsible practices. In talking with Devin at Windsor Meats, she told me that Canada has some of the best standards and processes in the world when it comes to animal raising. There's no hormones in the beef raised in Canada. And there's also nutritional and, as Mayor Mike said, cultural considerations for different groups here. To me, it's not a black and white issue. We all want a better, sustainable world, but in my opinion, we should support sustainable practices. Just to ban something isn't.
Gotta be clear about this. Sorry, it's just
No.
not banning.
So
You said that, you started this. It was your motion.
Okay.
You started it.
I just
We
wanna
are
be
not
clear.
banning.
Councillor Ma is welcome to oppose the motion, and for whatever reason he so chooses, and in it, he's found some other things to talk about. Councillor Ma.
Thank you for that, being able to speak my mind. That's pretty good. Is this motion to have more options?
I'm going to go to Mr. Stewart. Is this your interpretation of this motion?
My interpretation, Your Worship, it's not a prohibition of meat or cheese, but it's to look at ways we can increase the options and choices. Realizing that we don't have control, for example, over some of our agencies. I mean, this wouldn't apply to them. We only apply to the district. Obviously, if you've got volunteer groups, we couldn't apply that and require it to them. So I don't view this as a prohibition. I view it as encouraging choices and seeing if we can add more plant-based options to the purchase of food and the provision of food.
So
Councillor Ma, does that satisfy you on that?
could this have been achieved by this talking to the procurement officer instead of having a motion before council? I'm not sure. Is that a question? Can I get an answer to that question? Can this have been achieved by another means?
I'm really not sure of your question. Maybe you could.
So I think what he's trying to clarify is that we've already have a motion on the books to try to advance plant-based options. And so if this isn't to do something different, why can't we already do it under our purchasing?
Yes.
We can't already doing it under purchasing, yes. But we are going to, and I mean, it's in the report. The report actually says, this motion reaffirms our commitment to the act. It's intended to reaffirm what was already passed. Okay. So yes, it could go through alternative ways. Right now it's on the council table because a member of council raised it as a motion.
Okay. I'll vote when you call the vote, please.
Okay. Councillor Pope.
Thank you very much. I totally support the motion and the movement towards prioritizing plant-based food in the municipality within the district business, as well as across the planet. There's just so much research out there that points to the fact that it is the healthier way to go. I've certainly been advised that. And I, several years ago, for that reason, stopped eating meat, but also and significantly, the amount of impact it has on the climate, particularly with large animals. There's just no question about it that we have got to move forward in some way to reducing emissions and building a sustainable climate, and one way forward with that is to focus on eating plant-based. So I'm going to support the motion. I also agree that it shouldn't be a total ban, that what we're doing here is to prioritize plant-based food that the district procures. So on that basis, I will be voting yes.
Thank you very much. Okay, I see no further speakers on the matter. I'm prepared to call the question. All those in favor? Contrary minded? Motion carries. Councillor Ma opposed, and probably me in future opposed, but who knows?
But for now.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Council. Okay, Council, we've finished the regular meeting, the regular business of the meeting, in advance of our scheduled completion date, and so it provides us an opportunity to provide reports. Mr. Stewart, do you have any reports to share with the council this public meeting?
No, Your Worship.
Okay. Did any members of council like to share a report at this time? I think I'll lead off. Actually, I will say that quite a number of the members of council participated in the Lower Mainland Local Government Association meetings last week. I found it to be a very interesting opportunity to hear what's going on in our neighbors, and I know that we all probably learned some stories and different actions that we can carry forward to our own communities. A particular interest to me was how Abbotsford is handling a lot of the growing street population that's going on in their community, and how they're tying the resources together with their police and fire and their shelter services to better address the issue and support businesses in the community. I think they've definitely improved their response to what was a very rapidly growing situation in Abbotsford, and so I wanted to commend them on that. I thought Whistler was an excellent host for the event, and I believe that next year it is actually scheduled for Whistler again. I always, we have the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, the Union of BC Municipalities, and the LMLGA as opportunities for us to engage with our colleagues during the year. I always recommend the LMLGA first, because you can sit down with your neighbor and find out what's going on. Even though we may not have set up that opportunity locally, it's just Squamish, Lillooet, Metro Vancouver, and Fraser Valley Regional District. And the regime we operate under with provincial regulations is the same. The conditions we tend to find throughout our community is the same. It's very hard for me to find comparables with Chetwynd and Dawson Creek and other places with what's going on in the Metro Vancouver region. But this convention offers us an opportunity to hear a lot about what's going on in communities affected by the same conditions that we are. And so I think it was a great opportunity. I also met with, as a pre-convention item, with BC Hydro's executive group to talk about their work plans to increase electricity, both production and conservation within the system. And I found it to be a fruitful discussion. But they have a very large challenge ahead of them with the number of with every new home coming with a larger draw in order to be able to have heat pumps and proper and new stoves and charging stations for cars and such. It's a massive challenge facing BC Hydro and our community. But I thought that was time well spent. Councillor Pope, that might be from before, or did you have a report? Okay, Councillor Hanson, do you have a report?
Yeah, thank you very much. I just wanted to report that on April the 12th, I attended the Indigenous Relations Committee of Metro Vancouver. A number of topics were discussed. Of potential significance to the district, we heard a presentation which was the day in the life of a Metro Vancouver archaeologist. Discuss the need whenever we're dealing with any category of infrastructure, any category of disturbance of soil or site development, to have an archaeological assessment to ensure that we're not disturbing First Nations artifacts. It was a very fascinating presentation and a reminder of how First Nations people live throughout our region and occupied many nooks and crevices of our communities. So that, along with other topics, were discussed, and I'll leave it at that.
Thank you very much. Next, I have Councillor Ma.
Thank you. Sorry, back in April of this year, some dedicated volunteers from Heron Heights came out to clean up Ashdown Park, and the staff at the district were great in refinishing a little stone with a plaque for Marjorie Ashdown. And I just got a note from David Drew. You may remember him. You gave him the Mayor's Medal.
That's right.
Right. David just wanted to make sure that all the staff at the district that worked on this were recognized and thanked for their effort. And I apologize if I missed anyone's name, but Nick Barber, Brad Schnelling, and Indy Parmar were some of the names that David mentioned. So we just want to thank those staff members for helping us make this a very special event when we cleaned up the park. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ma. Councillor Back.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to highlight give an update from the North Vancouver Museum and Archives Commission as your council representative on the commission. We are in the midst of our strategic planning process right now. And we just recently, on Saturday, April 27th, had a full day session with the whole commission, as well as our Friends representative and staff to discuss our strategic plan. So it's an exciting time with the museum now open, and this is the strategic plan that's going to take us to the next stage as we move forward. And just say that the museum and archives are in a good position right now. We've got excellent leadership in our new director, so feeling very good about the way things are going there. And then I too was at LMLGA along with many of you. It was an excellent couple of days. I always enjoy connecting with colleagues from across the region. It's nice when you know most of the people in the room, unlike some of the bigger conferences. The resolution session was quite interesting, and I just wanted to highlight that the two resolutions that were brought forward through this council, the one around the oversight of the conservation service that Councillor Forbes brought forward, and my motion around looking at online voting for local elections in BC were both endorsed, and will now go to UBCM.
Thank you very much, Councillor Back. It's important to note that. Councillor Murray.
Thank you, Mayor Little. Just on LMLGA and hydro, I did have an opportunity to also speak to representatives from hydro, and I think it would be really, I know that when hydro presented at Metro Vancouver at the board, there was a engaged conversation during the delegation for over an hour. There were so many questions. And I think it would be really helpful if we gathered the three councils on the North Shore. We've done that before when we brought the councils. We've met at one of our halls and have them come and make a presentation and do a Q&A in regards to this, the challenges that they face, because they're they're massive, and I think we should all have that information. Also sit on the Zero Waste Committee for Metro Vancouver, and I toured the Vancouver landfill last week, along with the waste to energy facility and our new recycling facility on Southwest Marine Drive. And there's all sorts of issues that surround that work as well, that the region will be facing in the future. So the most imminent one will be the closure of the Vancouver landfill eventually. So how we would deal with that going forward. There's lots of waste out there. It's quite sad. And but Metro is looking at some innovative ways of being able to pull larger things like furniture, for instance, that you can't sell anymore, really, out and offering it to those in need. So,
thank you very much. I probably should make one more report, which was that it was my pleasure to represent the community at the Battle of Atlantic recognition the other day in the city of North Vancouver, and also as they've been hosting Fleet Week of sorts with 6 vessels tied up at the pier. This is something that they want to keep developing. It's something that's been popular for the community. You couldn't find a parking spot anywhere in there, and also the stream of people coming off the sea bus was just constant, coming to attend the couple of events that were going on there. Also was able to go on the deck of the HMCS Regina and meet with command staff and had great conversations with them about recruitment and the challenges they're facing and deployment issues. And it was very interesting. I was a bit surprised they were using a video game to promote joining the Navy. I was a bit surprised by that. World of Warships or something was, they were playing it on the boat and having gamers line up to come in and get exposed to the Navy in that way, I guess. But it is a fascinating opportunity, and if people are interested in technology and gadgets and travel, it can be a great way for them to also serve their country in the process. So having said that, I don't see any other requests for reports. So at this point, I will accept adjournment, moved by Councillor Murray, accepted. Thank you all for your consideration this evening. Thank you to staff for preparing your reports for our consideration. And thank you to members of the public who stayed with us through this evening and provided their comments at the beginning of the evening. Everybody have a fantastic night.